Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for coming or watching the replay. Today is such an important day because we're here to talk about a toxin that is unfortunately in a lot of our food, our soil, our water, and our air. And it's a really serious problem. And I feel like it's something that we can't really see, and it's kind of like really out of our view, but it's really affecting our lives and creating a lot of disharmony in our gut and in our mind. And all this chronic disease is like seemingly becoming something normal, and it's like normal to be on pharmaceuticals. And I feel like this is something we really need to stop and be like, what's going on? Why is this happening to us? And people just kind of most people choose to just kind of like ignorantly move forward without questioning anything and just like going to the doctor and getting addicted to these pharmaceuticals. But we need to talk about this. We need to talk about the food supply. We need to talk about this chemical that's affecting the masses, because if we don't do something, I don't want to list off a bunch of bad things that could happen, but we just need to do something. So sometimes for me, it can be hard for me to talk about this topic because it's getting easier for me, but it's like a lot to take in, and I'm not here to like scare anyone or try to pull anyone into some like I just want to let everyone know what's going on. So I have this quote that I want to read. It's from a book called Silent Spring, by Rachel Carson. Silent Springs, yeah, Silent Spring. Okay, so it's this. For the first time in the history of the world, every human being is now being subjected to contact with dangerous chemicals from the moment of inception until death. These chemicals are now stored in the bodies of the vast majority of human beings, regardless of age. They occur in the mother's milk and probably in the tissues of the unborn child. So in this quote, Rachel is referring to DDT, which was a pesticide sprayed in the 40s and 50s, mostly for mosquitoes. And different like symptoms of DDT were similar to that of polio. So you can kind of see that this is like there are very extreme side effects to this. And now we have like a new DDT, on the market now, and uh it's in about 80%, about, it's kind of hard to tell exactly, 80% of our food, soil, water, and air supply. So not only is this on our food, it is in our entire environment, and it's really nearly impossible, if possible at all, to avoid. And this is something that I sometimes struggle with even saying, because I really like to hold the vision of seeing and feeling clean air and water and food for everyone. But we also have to look and see what's going on. We can't just turn a blind eye while people are literally dying and suffering and unable to live a true good quality life with this chemical all around us. Okay. And so this chemical, um, it has 3 patents on it. Just to kind of give you a little background on what's up with it. So first, the first patent was, it is a descaler. So it helps to clean off like industrial pipes in factories. Just kind of like imagine like an industrial style lime away. And then the second one, what was the second one to the second? I remember the third one. Oh yeah, the second one, it was patented as a weed killer, because they're like, oh my gosh, like not only did like it clean the pipe so well, it was killing everything. So they made it a weed killer. And then the third one, which like when I found this out, I was like, oh my God, what is going on? It's an antibiotic. Okay, so antibiotics have been fantastic for mankind, and they've helped so many people in emergency situations. And we also know that it's not really the best choice if we don't have to choose that, because it destroys our gut microbiome, and our gut is our second brain. A bunch of our immune system and our hormones are produced in our gut. And if we are having antibiotics every day with every meal and absorbing it through our skin in the water and inhaling it, that is going to completely destroy our gut and our gut microbiota and our ability to absorb food and to have, all this like the immunity and proper hormone function. So this is a really serious issue that is happening. So I would really like for you, my friend Kevin is here, Kevin Luna. Thank you for being here, Kevin. Kevin is very knowledgeable. He's been on this path for a little bit longer than me, I believe. And Kevin, I would love to hear your knowledge about glyphosate, how it has affected you, your family, people around you, and what have you been doing in order to try to lighten this what's the word I want to use, the pressure, the toxicity that this has caused to your body.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I want to say thank you so much, Mallory, for putting this together. And I mean, just hearing you list off all the stats and the numbers and really the scale of this and just some general information, just basic stuff that people might not know, just listing off some of that stuff, it really is very eye-opening, and it just is a further reminder, for anyone that's listening or watching or anything, that like, why this is so important, and kind of like why I think, you're so passionate about this and I'm so passionate about this. And I think it can hit people in different ways, why they might be passionate about it. And I think one thing, or there's a lot of good news, as well. I don't think it's also so doom and gloom, as well. But I think some of the good things is, there's a number that is an estimation, that people say that we can get to, and if we get to that number, when it comes to a lot of these chemicals that are in the food, especially this one we're talking about, a glyphosate. When we get to a certain percentage of food that is grown organically, without pesticides, without this chemical, glyphosate, and that's 13%, which sounds daunting, but actually that's good news. It's a very, very, attainable target of 13% of the food being grown organically, regenerative, without chemicals. And what's interesting about that, is that there is a movement and a push towards it. You know what I mean? Like I think there's a lot of awareness that I've seen. You know what I mean? A lot of documentaries, a lot of people making shifts. Even some of the people that are, maybe listening right now or that we work with are making a lot of those shifts. And I think that's a huge, huge positive. That it looks like we're going in the right direction. So I think that that's really good. Now, I think a couple other things to think about when it comes to glyphosate. And I guess to answer one of your questions is, well, let me give you a couple other perspectives, I would say, on how this might impact some other people, before it even gets to you. Because sometimes, and not everyone's like this, but sometimes people really connect with other people or connect with other innocent individuals, like maybe the animals, right? I know so many people are like, I really, care about, my animals or my dogs or my cats, but I don't take care of myself that well, but I'll do anything for them. And so when this chemical gets sprayed on the fields, right, oftentimes they spray this on like wheat, corn, soy. Okay, these are some common crops that they're sprayed on. There's many crops that it gets sprayed on, but these crops in particular, are some of the crops that are fed to the animals as well, right? So the animals that people eat. So when they eat that, what happens is it also is causing a lot of the damage in them. It's a known carcinogen, right? So what that means is it's known to cause cancer. And if you look at a lot of the animals when they test them for cancer inside the farms, they have so much cancer in them. They have a lot, and those foods that they're getting are genetically modified, the majority of them. which means that they're being sprayed with the glyphosate, which is resistant to Roundup. So I think that's one factor that some people don't think about, right? Is how that's impacting them. And then also they're actually suffering, with that pain, right? Because that obviously hurt when anyone that has ever suffered from cancer, it's very, very painful. And you see them go through a very painful process. So they're experiencing that. You've ever seen those videos where like something's oozing out like of the meat or whatever, and it's like, what is that? It's like pus or whatever, like these cancer that this cancer already formed inside it, and people eat that, right? Some people are eating that. That's one thing to think about. Another thing is when it gets onto the soil, what happens? You mentioned it that it's an antibiotic and it's a weed killer, but what's inside soil is microbes. A lot of microbes, all the bacteria is all inside the soil. When that gets onto the soil, it also kills the soil, right? So what happens is the soil doesn't have the nutrients that it needs, but they grow the plants and they force them and they give them all this stuff and all these different chemicals and other things as well to help them grow, right? But they might look amazingly, how would you say, beautiful. Like if you look at like a tomato or something from like 40 years ago, you might be like, what's up with this tomato? Maybe it looks kind of small, but now that everything's like perfect shaped, like perfectly red. And but what it's missing is the nutrients, right? So that's a huge thing that's happening, right? So it's depleting the soil of the nutrients. And they say like, oh, it's only like 80% or so of the topsoils left in the US. And so that's is one of the things that's happening to impact people as well. So when people eat the food, like for example, like a carrot that's grown in regenerative soil, for example, you need to eat 100 carrots grown conventionally how it is today to get the same nutrients as one carrot in regenerative soil. And that's just the nutrient content. So that impacts what people are eating, but also any of the wild animals or any of the animals are eating the food, they're not getting that, and it goes into the water, right? So a lot of people know the big chemical spill that happened recently, right? All over the country, but like Ohio was kind of had a lot more information, or seemed like more information on Ohio. And everyone's like, it's toxic, it's terrible, and it is very, very toxic and terrible. But this chemical that we're talking about, glyphosate, I think is like 1,000 times worse because of how much it's being used and how it's already in everyone's food. It's already in the water. You can't wash it off, you can't cook it off, you can't clean it off, right? So these are some things that are kind of like a little bit eye-opening, and I think people that care about that aspect, I think is very important for them, and you might care about the environment and rebuilding the trees or rebuilding the forest or anything like that. I think those are big factors for some people, right? So then what about on the individual level? If you're like, well, I don't really care about the environment or animals, but I really do care about myself and I want to make sure that I'm taken care of. Like if it's a antibacterial, right, or antibiotic, which is killing the bacteria, and it's also known to be a weed killer, it starts kind of breaking down your body, kind of once it starts touching your body. So it starts really from the ingestion. If it's on the food, if the food is sprayed with it, then it's on the food, and then you eat the food, and that's going to start from your throat down to your esophagus, your vagus nerve, all the way into the gut, your gut microbiome, and so that's kind of how it really gets into you. It really just goes through your digestive system, and that's really where it impacts you. And so people that work in the fields, they spray it on the fields. They have to wear like suits to cover themselves, to protect themselves. And sometimes, like before they knew it was really dangerous, they would get the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. That cancer directly came from the spraying of the glyphosate on the fields around, which is also known as Roundup. So to answer your second question, right, that you had said, is what is something that we can do about this, or something that we can impact this? So something that some people can do that are still getting tested, you could get tested for glyphosate, and they could test it in the pee. So that's how people know. That's how you even know, like, do I have a lot of glyphosate in me, or do animals, like if you have your pets, like if they're in the grass, it's genetically modified and sprayed with Roundup. So if they're walking on like grass in parks, that's another way. So they could get tested. So that could be a way that you can identify like maybe how much you might have in you or anything like that, and how dangerous it is, or if you're at a dangerous level, right? Like it seems like, whoa, that's really high. That's one thing. But then the other thing is like, so it's obviously going through the pee, but it gets, like you were saying, it gets stuck in the cells sometimes, or in the gut microbiome, or it bioaccumulates. And our body, a lot of people say, well, our body's detoxing already, like our body's doing it. And you're right. Your kidneys are filtering and your liver and there's different functions. Your lymphatic system is, bringing things out of your body and getting it, where it needs to be wasted. But what happens is a lot of people get kind of overloaded, where it's like almost like a toxic overload, where you have too much in you and you didn't get enough out, right? So you just overloaded. Like imagine, I don't know, imagine you ate fast food for a week straight, 7 days a week or 3 days a week, as an example. That person is going to have a higher amount of toxins potentially in their body than maybe the person that's just eating fruits and vegetables or something for that same amount of time. That's just an example, right? Like an extreme example. But you might know people like that. It might not be that extreme depending on who you talk to. So you get overwhelmed, your body needs support. So it needs support. And there's only one product in the world that's tested and has preclinical trials to remove glyphosate from the body, and it's called Biomedic. And so Biomedic it has been clinically tested to remove 74% of glyphosate in 6 weeks. And during the testing, they test something called CRP, which is C reactive protein. And C reactive protein is like the main inflammation marker that you can do. If you go get a test for inflammation, they'll check your C reactive protein. And that was reduced, which is the inflammation marker. So that's how they know, okay, you have inflammation and this is the levels that it's at by the C reactive protein. Within 6 weeks, that same amount of time, it was reduced by 75%, which is incredible, because that is honestly the key to a lot of these diseases. Like you were saying, people are like, well, diseases, like how are diseases being formed? A big amount of diseases are caused through inflammation, a large amount of them. And my particular disease that I experienced, that I was, fighting through, it's an autoimmune disease, and it's called ankylosing spondylitis, which is kind of a crazy name. But it's basically like rheumatoid arthritis, and it was impacting my spinal health, extreme inflammation, stiffness. So autoimmune diseases are linked to inflammation. When I was able to reduce my inflammation by taking this consistently, and pairing it with all the other things that you can do to reduce inflammation, right? And there's many other things that you can do as well, including all the other nutrition that you eat and the food that you eat, right? So when I was able to reduce those inflammation markers, I was able to reduce the symptoms, which was huge. So I didn't have the pain. I didn't experience the pain. I didn't have to take any more medication. So that's a huge, huge win. And one of my main goals when I even heard about this in the first place, to be honest, when I first heard about this, I was already looking into gut health. I knew about some of the testing, like I said, testing, and I was looking at testing, but I didn't find any solution. No, some things are like, this can help, this might help, but I never saw anything that was like, this will reduce this by this percent. And I was kind of like I was always been like a math person. So like, that makes sense. Percentages make sense. And so it was a easy kind of decision for me when I saw that. And so when I tried it and then I experienced it and helped other people as well, it's like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. So that's a huge thing I think people can do. And it's really, really easy. I don't think it's too hard. And also, like, there's other things I've seen similarly. Like, there's some people that do really, really great work, I think, in this kind of field. Like, it's not like, oh my gosh, we're the only people that know about glyphosate. This is So many people know about this. So many people are working on this. So many people have tried to find solutions. Some people have, pretty good solutions. And also, it's also very hidden. So sometimes you're like, I hear so many times people are like, wait, it's not bad for you. It's okay. It's fine. They already said it's fine. And it's like, well, where that information come from? And so when you peel back the layers of that, oftentimes they have a study. Some study said this and some study said that. And you peel back the layer a little bit further. And that's what I learned about studies is who funded the study. So it's like, okay, well, the industry that really, really benefits from this, not being harmful is the one that paid for the study. So it's kind of like this big bias thing, right? So there's that. And then if you look at the settlements, and you could look that up, settlements, lawsuits for glyphosate, I think that's that was a big sign for me. I was like, that makes sense. If you're paying billions and billions of dollars in damages for cancer related damages, and health related damages directly to this chemical, right? For me, that was very clear. And so making it simple and affordable, like I said, the other people that are in the space that do help people with glyphosate and stuff like that, most of them are pretty expensive, and they only have a fraction of the same kind of ingredients, because people are starting to realize what works and what doesn't work. Two ingredients that are really powerful within the biomedic is the fulvic acid and humic acid, or a fulvic acid and a humic ore. And the humic ore replaces the lost nutrients, and the fulvic helps to remove the glyphosate. Then it also has a wheat germ extract that helps to replace that's like helps to replace the to repair the gut lining, and also a probiotic and prebiotic that actually gets into the gut microbiome. So it's replacing a lot of that damaged and lost gut bacteria. So it's kind of like four things in one, all working together for your gut, that are all kind of linked to a lot of other gut health professionals. And so, like some of the other ones that are similar, they might have only 50% or maybe 75% of those ingredients, but they might be twice the price. And so that's the thing that I think is really powerful, is that it's effective, and it works really well, and it's really affordable for people. Because I think most people look at a lot of solutions that are really powerful, that work really, really well, and they're like, that's just way too much. That's just way expensive. And I don't think it even comes into, if you really add up all the costs that it might be for some of the medical bills that people have later in life, I think that it's not even close to that. And I look at it as almost like a food filter. Everyone has a water filter, and we kind of know a lot of things in the water. We can't see, your water looks clear, it looks fine, but we know there's contaminants in there. Same with the food, except for it's a little bit more hidden. It's a lot harder in food. But this is like a food filter that's the way I look at it. And I think that we all need filters for our food and our water. So that's kind of my information on glyphosate and what I have.
Wow, Kevin, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that this is a really easy, because sometimes when we hear people say, "Oh, we're gonna do a glyphosate detox," it's like you think, I don't know, it could be some like huge detoxification process, and it's actually just like super simple. You just take 2 capsules every day of biomedic, and just to kind of make it a little bit relatable, to just kind of let people know different things that glyphosate is connected to, or different diseases that it causes in the body. And there are and I also wanted to mention too that the USDA has refused many times to have glyphosate tested, or because they just say that it's safe and that it's not dangerous. But if you look over the years at different kinds of diseases and ailments, as the use of glyphosate goes up, like the disease goes up. And correlation isn't causation, but it does show us where we should be looking. And so I just have a list of things here. I just want to read different health concerns that are connected to glyphosate. Okay, so there's
Can I
irritable
say
bowel.
something really quick,
Yeah, yeah,
Mallory? The
yeah.
biggest, I think, before you list off those the some of the diseases that it can cause, I think the biggest factor is because it's creating a nutrient deficiency, right? And it's also creating a malabsorption and increased inflammation and leaky gut. So those things are what's happening, and then some of almost the diseases that you're going to list off are stemming from that. So that's kind of why most people think it's so linked to that, because of what it's doing to the actual body, and then what your body needs in terms of nutrients. And so I think that's where the connection is really strong.
Yes, thank you for adding that. I appreciate you hopping in there. So there's IBS, celiac disease, liver disease, acute kidney injury, thyroid cancer, urinary bladder cancer, Alzheimer's. Glyphosate helps aluminum to like get into the brain, which is one of the leading causes of Alzheimer's. Hepatitis C, Parkinson's, dementia, sleeping disorder, obesity, because we are not absorbing our food enough into our body, and our brain and our gut are telling us to eat more food, when really it's like we just need more nutrients that aren't being absorbed. Um, diabetes, autism, ADHD diagnosis, just to kind of give you an idea of what it can look like. Even like depression and anxiety. These are just some things that I didn't know were connected to the gut at all, especially depression and anxiety. But then it makes total sense when you consider the brain gut connection and how at conception, there are like three strands of DNA, and one of them is the one that develops our brain and our gut. So you can see how closely connected these two things are and how essential it is to really take care of our gut. And this is something that I never learned about in school. We're not educated about any of this. And like that alone is kind of like a red flag to like get on it and figure out what's going on with our gut, because it's honestly quite like intentionally being done just to be like straightforward with you on that, and to disempower us as to disempower humanity. And so healing your gut, it is a commitment to stepping into healing yourself and taking your power back. It's so much more. Yeah, I think that do you have anything that you want to add, Kevin?
Um, I would just say, kind of definitely do some research, on your own and look it up if it's something that you've never heard of and this sounds like surprising, like your first time, because that's kind of how I was, and I've always been like once I started learning how to look up information and kind of sift through, some of the stuff, I was able to find some of the information clearly. And I think there's some people that are like that, and we'll be able to find that clearly. I think if you're like, well, this definitely sounds interesting, and I definitely want to learn more, I would say whoever shared this video with you, I think you should definitely reach out and connect with them because they'd be, happy to help guide you, so that you can learn more and hopefully get started. I think that I always say I think everyone needs this just because of how it's everywhere, including it even gets in the rain and in your water, and you can't wash it off or cook it off. And I just think that it's smart for us to know what's going on and be aware, then do the best that we can to protect ourselves and protect others. I know some people are, if you're a mother that's listening, you're definitely have that, motherly instinct of protector, hopefully. And I think most men should have that already innately in them, ideally, as the protector, like I need to protect, hopefully that's already there. And so that covers most people, I think. That covers most people that want to do the protection. And I don't think every country in the world has it is it so pervasive. When I was in the tropics, they're not spraying it there, so it's not as critical. But if you're in the US, you're in Canada, you're in the Western countries, UK, the food's getting shipped over there. Like this is something, that makes a huge impact. And the people that I've seen, change their lives with this is just beyond amazing, with people just changing their lives. Like I have people that like, it's the only thing they add, like they're like, I'm doing everything so great. I'm like, we'll just do this. And this is going to even be better. And they're like, couldn't, I didn't believe you, but you're right, and
Yeah.
so I think that's all I had to say.
Yeah, it's so good to stay positive about it, because there's so many things going on the planet, and it's so easy to feel overcome by them, but it's so wonderful that we have a real solution that is already working for so many people. And if you're watching this or watching the replay, just please give yourself the opportunity to experience what it feels like to get glyphosate out of your body, especially if you are dealing with some kind of discomfort in your body. And even if you think that you're healthy enough, I highly encourage you to still try it, because I thought I was already healthy enough before this. But if you're not getting this glyphosate out, it's gonna be you might feel like a hamster on a hamster wheel trying to recover your health. So Kevin, thank you so much for joining. It was really great to hear you share, and I hope everyone has a beautiful night. Thank you.
Glyphosate, glyphosate, glyphosate. Why you killing plants that you could be putting on your plate? Damaging the bees that be working hard to pollinate. Everything we eat, toxic spray, it's glyphosate. Okay, you want a lawn, yawn. Why you gotta kill the insects and the fauna? Why if you could grow a different ground cover? Get yourself some creeping thyme or clover. Plant a fruit tree, plant a berry bush. Make your lawn productive, pick instead of push. Lawnmowers are annoying, dandelions are edible. Heart healthy, beautiful, medicinal, plentiful. Glyphosate, glyphosate, glyphosate. Why you killing plants that you could be putting on your plate? Damaging the bees that be working hard to pollinate everything we eat. Toxic spray, it's glyphosate.